afternoon, everyone. Beth from EWS Network here. Thank you for joining me for our back and core strength webinar, part 2. So last week we got into back health and core strength, obviously, and we kind of took a deeper look at posture and alignment and the importance of it and the benefits of it, the whys. Today we're going to get into it a little bit more of the hows. So it's a little bit more of an interactive workshop per se, if you decide to do some of the exercises with me. So we're going to go into a workout today that promotes back strength and core strength, and kind of discuss a little bit more of the importance of proper safe exercise. So the first few minutes, I'm just going to give you kind of a preamble, getting into the exercises we'll be going into, the importance of a warm-up, cool down, and things like that. So let's get right into it. So when you're looking at exercises geared towards core strength with your back in mind, of course your posture and alignment are essential. So you basically want to think about how your posture should be trained, right, in that neutral alignment, and that posture and alignment should translate into your exercises. So even with that, safe controlled motion is better than sheer load and a bunch of choreography. So sometimes when you're looking at exercises with that in mind, simplicity is better, and really just keeping in mind where your body is at in space, so that you're not kind of getting into postures or unsafe movement. So when looking at that, with the goal of that, we'll get into a little bit more of the hows. So when we're warming up especially, we want to make sure that we're lubricating the joints and moving through a full range of motion. Your body craves movement, and typically in a day, we don't get enough movement, and secondary to that, we don't get a lot of full range, right? So we end up tightening into unnatural ways. So even the fact of moving through a full range of motion, getting things lubricated, kind of working out those little kinks throughout your body, that's the purpose of your warm-up especially. We know the importance of breathing to a certain extent, but your breath has a lot of prominence in the fact of deep breaths in will really open up the back. So even that can be a good kind of exercise to open it through. But breath supports your exercise. So when you're breathing out with the focus of contracting your abs, abdominal contraction and engaged core is going to lend itself to proper safe exercise with that in mind. When we're warming up with a view of, again, back health especially, we want to be incorporating the four movements of the spine as well. So that would be flexion, extension, lateral flexion, and rotation, and we'll get into that in the next slide when we kind of talk about some warm exercises, keeping in mind that in a few minutes we'll be taking this to the mat and giving it a try, and I would encourage you to kind of work along with me. So in our warm-up, like we said, we want to keep full range of motion in mind, and we want to think about from the neck right through to the tailbone, opening everything up and kind of just priming it through with the goal of getting that full range of motion, getting that blood flowing, and prepping your body for exercise. Warm-up, of course, is essential, as you would know, to proper form and function. And even in that, with your warm-up, in terms of getting connected with your breath, focusing on alignment, it really kind of gets you into that zone, right, of ensuring proper safe exercise. I'm calling it a warm-up, but keeping in mind that these are just good practices throughout the day to kind of incorporate. So even these few exercises, if you're seated a lot, you don't move a lot in the day, perhaps maybe you're seated at your workstation, just doing a few head circles, right? Some shoulder shrugs, flexing forward, opening your chest and extending back. Things like that will really lend itself to those reminders of checking your posture, engaging your core, taking a deep breath. And it's all things that typically we don't do enough of in our day. So even those good reminders, and again, a more formal approach when we get into an exercise-based workout. So then a few more warm exercises that we'll be going over today would be pelvic tilts, the Pilates verbiage around this would be like an imprinted alignment as well as a neutral alignment. We're going to get into that. And stretching at that lumbar. So a lot of people seem to carry tension through their low back. So carrying tension into your workout, tension breeds tension, right? So unless you're really aligning and decreasing tension, then otherwise what you're going to do is you're going to carry that into your workout. So the exercises that we'll be reviewing today are hands on thighs. So this again takes many forms and functions. You're going to notice with our exercises today, you can make them dynamic or you can keep them static. Like I said, we're shying away, nothing against it, from complicated exercise with a lot of choreography, just to really show how simple yet effective a workout, again, just even a 15-minute kind of stint for your core will really do. So we'll get into that. We're going to go through some open chain exercises. That's where both legs are elevated, and kind of discussing the importance of aligning your back into that as well. We're going to do some knee drops. So again, this is open chain. The idea of pulling abs to the mat, hollowing them out, and never overemphasizing where your back is with the workout. By that I mean we're never emphasizing that fact of pushing into the mat, but rather a gentle pelvic tilt that we'll get into as well. And you can kind of see how this workout flows all the way through. Shoulder bridges. We're going to be doing more spine work with the bridge. So we sometimes relate that bridge to just lifting your glutes up and down, but we'll just really get into how much of a good kind of spinal release you can be getting through that. And again, talking about where your back is when you're working through a bridge also. Kind of building on those knee drops, we have leg extensions, and I'm going to give you some modifications along the way as well. Of course, you're going to feel muscular work going into exercise. Your body's response with pressure, pain, or tension is not a good thing. So we want to make sure that we're working in the right places, and if not, the most effective thing to do is apply a modification. So we're going to get into that a little bit more. Kind of building on those leg extensions, we're going to be working through some dead bugs. So that's where you're adding those that arm raises in with your leg extensions. And again, talking about honoring the body and making sure that we're doing the level that's comfortable for us. Roll-ups. Again, kind of a different approach to those. Crunches are great and they have their place. Similar to a crunch, same motion, but just really getting into a proper execution of the roll-ups, even the fact of where our abs are, and the fact that we're not emphasizing our neck when we're doing our roll-ups or our crunches, but it's all about your abs working and your head will be the last thing to follow through. Kind of countering that, roll downs, one of my favorites. And again, you can see how a lot of these, you can add different modifications, right? So you can do something static where you're breathing, or add some more dynamic motion in with the roll-ups too. We'll be discussing planks. So we talked about this a little bit in part one. But yeah, just some different modifications there. Keeping in mind even where your back is, so your back should not be dipping, as you can see from that posture. So it's basically carrying a neutral posture, flipping it forward down onto the mat. We have side planks, and again, here we'll talk a little bit about our shoulder care. I get a lot of comments from clients in terms of like their shoulder or neck tension through it, so we'll be talking about a few ways to effectively execute your side plank. Prone back extensions, and again, how to execute those properly. Bird dog for all you yogis, or anyone liking a little bit of core strength. And then just getting into our cool down. So again, just kind of the importance of it, the importance of, again, connecting with that breath, restoring kind of that balance to our body and giving needed attention to the areas that need it. So we'll get right into it. So what I'll do here is I'll just put, we'll stop sharing my screen and I'll get myself up to my full view and then we'll go from there. So I'll just crab walk back to my mat and we'll get right into our workout here. You don't need to crab walk if you don't want. So again, you can do this from wherever you are. Got one little cheat sheet here too. You can do this from wherever you are, but let's just start with those head circles. So again, think about pushing your hips forward and finding that posture. And again, for some of us, it will feel like a super amount of effort just to hold that posture, but you're gonna notice that's essential to get those muscles trained to do so. So what I'm gonna get you to do here is you're gonna draw your chin up and start to connect with your breath. So you're gonna breathe in as your chin comes up. Deep breath out, pulling your right ear to the right shoulder, and you're gonna circle the head to the right. So I'm gonna keep moving as I'm talking, but all you're thinking about here is, again, encouraging a full range of motion, checking in with your posture and your alignment, so ensure that you're not listing forward or favoring the circle. So your core is intact and the head is freely circling. Your body, like I said, craves movement, right? So even here, start to observe how you're working up through some of those kinks. And it starts to feel a little bit better to let your shoulders drop. Let's just take it to the left and the same rule. So again, even here, you can notice with the correct focus, how even the simplest of movements can turn into an effective exercise. So you want to think about pulling the core tight, aligning the back, opening through, and giving your body that nice movement as you're working through and as you're circling through that head. So again, these are all things you can even do at your workstation. This time here, let's just bring your head back to center and move into some shoulder shrugs. Breathing in as your shoulders come up and breathing out as your shoulders drop. So when you're moving through here, you want to think about even connecting with the core. So it's like your waist, those obliques are lengthening. And then the obliques, your waist, your side muscles shorten. You want to think about where your scapula are in place, those little shoulder blades, right? So they're not pinching. And what you want to feel, it's like there are two little plates moving either side of the spine. So a little curve through that upper back with that extension. But feel those shoulder blades glide and slide as they're moving freely. And align it through. So again, that idea, your core is unaltered, it stays intact. Just those scapula are gliding, feeling that upper back release. Let's just do one more and you're breathing in, connecting through that breath. You're breathing out and you're contracting with those abs as those shoulders drop, working into scapula isolation. So turn the palms in, let your hands come level with your shoulders. I'll do your side view here. And here when you're isolating through the scapula, you're going to breathe out to round those shoulder blades forward. And then you're going to breathe in as you pull those shoulder blades back. So notice here, it's not a matter of hunching or leaning forward. It's a matter of allowing the shoulder blades to slide freely across the upper back while keeping the upper back unaltered and neutral, opening through the chest as you breathe in. Let's just do another 3 as you follow through. And again, glide and slide. So start to think about restoring that alignment. Sitting as tall as you can. It's great with a video. I can really check in with it. So again, a mirror would be handy if you're doing this. Allow the hands to plant onto your knees and your feet to plant also for some flexion and extension through the spine to follow. So flexion is a forward motion. So you want to think about ensuring that you're rounding through the back and articulating through the spine, not folding from the hips. And we're going to counter this. So you're going to rock the hips forward, find your neutral spine, but now peel the chest to open and bring your shoulders back for a little bit of extension to counter. It's not about the neck, it's about the back more so. So your chin drops, your upper back rounds, and again, we're going into those 4 motions of the spine. So this is flexion and extension, motion 1 and 2. And when you're coming up, you're going to notice your head is always the last thing to follow. And that holds through for things like your ab prep or your crunches too. So you're just flexing to roll forward. So even here, you can feel some decompression going on. You can feel some work. And again, here, when you're rolling it back, use that breath and open that rib cage. Just do one more here. So this time when you come tall, if you are sitting on your mat, you can assume a cross-legged position again, or stay with bent knees, planted feet. Going into some rotation with your hands to a T-shape. Remember, this is all about spinal alignment. Staying tall, you're going to now rotate the body And again, this is all about the spine. So your arms will be the last thing to follow through, but just feeling some rotation through it. Notice here that when you're rotating, the idea is that your core is engaged, your posture is intact, and then from there, you're just allowing that rib cage to kind of slide through as you're moving through that full range of motion. So here it's like you're wrapped in cling wrap, so to speak. So everything will shift with that alignment. You can even do this again here if you're seated, just with that little rotation, drawing your elbows back, but just again, encouraging that full rotation through. So here you want to think of like a press pull motion occurring through the sides, allowing that spine to rotate here, and make sure that you're holding that correct alignment. Going into some lateral flexion, right hand plants on the mat, your left hand comes up and overhead. Check in with your alignment, make sure you're not twisting forward, binding back. From your fingertip to your hip will be one line. Fill that rib cage, breathe into your back to come tall. And then breathe out to enter that smooth side bend, stretch, fingertip to hip. Even think about your head placement. So even the placement of your head will have a harboring on the alignment of the spine, but you can feel the taller you are, the more engaged you are as you're moving through a warm-up with the purpose of working the back, working the core and the back, but with the purpose of encouraging safety through the back. That's what we want to be doing as you're moving all the way through. Let's go into those two supine, those two lying down warm-up exercises. Working into, again, using the verbiage of imprint to neutral. Let's go ahead, just make our way all the way down onto the mat as we exhale. So slow and smooth. And what we're going to do is really get into, we're calling them pelvic tilt, but how to judge a pelvic tilt. What I want you to do here, a good way to judge it, make a triangle with your hands, right? So fingertips touch and your thumbs touch. You're going to place that triangle onto the pelvis. You're going to notice how your fingertips are on the pubic bone. Your palms are reasonably resting on your hip bones or close by. What you're going to do here is you're going to bring your pubic bone high and your hips low. You're going to notice that when you do so, essentially, that triangle is tilting upwards. Your fingertips are coming high and your hip is low. This is your pelvic tilt here. Abs are short, spine is scooped. So when we're working through an open chain exercise, feet are elevated, we're always hollowing the abs and encourage a pelvic tilt. It does not mean push your back into the mat, and it doesn't mean lift your buns. So let's just rock through into what we call that neutral alignment. So that's that posture where your spine should naturally lie. So let's just breathe out with it. So exhale, pubic bone high, hips are low. Locate that pelvic tilt, judging by where your pelvis is, not about pushing the back into the mat. As you breathe in to follow, lengthen the abs, and again, judge it by pubic bone and hip bones are on the same plane. Just do another two, so you're going to exhale here, pull your abs in and through. Inhale, again, even here you can feel some decompression going on through that lumbar. When you're executing correctly, it doesn't put any stress on the back, but you should feel a gentle stretch through the back, a little bit of activation through those abs. Let's work into that a more formal lumbar stretch. This time, go ahead and just hug those knees into the body. So notice that when you hug those knees in, pubic bone is high, hips are low, back is stretching, core is engaged. Remember, if your abs are engaged, your back is supported. So let's move into some of our exercises here. So just smoothly from here, you're going to pull your legs up in the tabletop. We're going to review hands on knees. So here the purpose is lower abs. Back will also be challenged. Top will also be out of place. So what you're going to start with here, hands on your thighs, thighs on your hand. Now keep in mind, if you can think it, you can feel it, you're creating your own resistance. So you can pick your level of challenge here. You're going to breathe out, and all you're going to do is push your hands into your thighs, literally, and your thighs into your hands, and feel how much delightful core activation is associated. And on your breath in, you're just going to lay off that tension, lay off that press, but don't just kind of sink and relax. So when you're breathing out, you're pressing through, and notice how the posture barely changes, but that internal activation most certainly does. And then you're letting it down and letting it through. So again, taking this to an office setting or a seated setting, you can just do this seated. Again, you're going to push your hands on your thighs, engage the core, and breathe out smoothly. A modification to this exercise would be keeping your feet planted. If you're taking it to a mat, so you're going to lower those hands, but the same idea working through. You're creating your tension by pushing it all the way through as you exhale. So moving on into a knee drop. Same idea, knees are bent in 90 degrees. Abs are hollow into the mat. You're going to maintain a 90-degree angle through the knees, and all you're going to do here is you're going to allow your knee to drop about 6 to 8 inches. And then your breath in, you're going to pull that knee all the way up. Alternate if you're maintaining tabletop, right? And the purpose here is to feel the stability challenge and the work through the lower abs as you're working through. The goal is not to stress the back. To ensure your abs stay pulled to the mat, you're maintaining that pelvic tilt by shortening the abs, pulling your pubic bone high, and you're breathing out. That breath out will provide that support as your knees are dropping. So option here as you're moving through, you can do one leg at a time for, I'd say, about 8 to 10 reps. If you're working through here, plant your opposing leg, and you're just going to be dropping the knee through as you're moving. So again, still with that abdominal contraction in mind, but you can do one leg at a time. The purpose here is never to overwork the hip flexors, of course. A weak core will promote engaging the hip flexors unnecessarily. So you always want to think it's your lower abs that should be working, not those hip flexors, the fronts of your legs essentially that they shouldn't be working. Let's move into a shoulder bridge, and this is a good one even to open up the hip flexors depending on how you're doing it. What you want to do is, for purpose of spinal alignment, is work through a pelvic tilt. So you're tilting up first, then scooping and lifting up onto that mat. So what you can see is that diagonal line. So the goal isn't just to lift your bum as high as you can, really arc that back. With a shoulder bridge here, you're working on glute strength, hamstring strength, lower ab engagement, and a little bit of extension to your back. And then your breath out, like I said, we're just going to roll all the way through. So slowly, but still with that the focus of spinal alignment in mind. And then roll it down and lengthen through the abs as you're moving through. So what you're going to notice here, it's not about just lifting your butt. It's not about just extending your back. But even here, what you're going to notice, and again, if you're tight through here, you want to really open those hip flexors. And again, you're going to really work away from that forward posture that is very natural for us now. You want to think about everything kind of becoming open and balancing that forward posture. So opening up your hips, opening up your chest, but really with that focus of spinal alignment in mind. You're squeezing and you're lifting. So again, notice the posture here. It's a nice diagonal. Open hip flexors, tight buns, and squeezing it through as you're working. So let's counter it now with a smooth roll down all the way down and all the way through. And you're actually going to stop in that pelvic tilt to move right into our roll-ups, or you might know them better as crunches, depending on the verbiage that we're using. Okay, so here, hands by your head, and you're going to notice how your elbows kind of almost support those peripherals. Your end result, we always think, is just about pulling our neck up. Your head is the last thing to follow through. So when you're working through a roll-up, you want to think about contracting your abs, keeping your elbows in your peripherals. Your abs contract before your head comes up. Hollow the abs to the mat and allow your head to come down slowly on your breath in. I want you to observe if you're breathing correctly, you're pulling up, you're hollowing through, and really think about pulling your abs to the mat when you're executing this exercise. And then you're going to breathe in and allow that head to come down as you're moving through. So notice again, it's not about one of these and just your head rocking through, not doing anything for you. not doing anything good for you, I should say. But here again, protect that neck. It's not about straining, it's about closing the ribcage, pulling your hips through together as if it's an envelope, and then smoothly rolling down as you're working it through. Let's roll all the way up to follow. So let's aim for a smooth roll up to review our roll down. We'll take it to tempo to start with. And what you want to think about here, it's not about how far you're leaning. It's how much, hopefully you can see with the baggy t-shirt, it's how much you're scooping and how much you're crunching. So here it's basically like an inverted pelvic tilt. You're going to bring your pubic bone high, hips low, and overlap that hip to rib like an envelope. Use a breath out to do so. And then as you inhale, you're coming tall and you're lengthening it through. If your hip flexors are activating, elevate yourself. So prop yourself up on a cushion if you have it handy, a rolled up towel, or a yoga block if you have access to one. Like I said, you're going to notice here, it's not about just leaning way back. It's about curling the glutes under you. Feel that flexion of the spine. Use your abs to support that posture, and then you're lengthening it all the way through as you inhale. So slow and smooth as you're moving. Let's just do another two just as I'm explaining. But even notice here, arms and shoulders aren't way forward. You're keeping that upper back in check as you're rocking through a smooth posture. Let's just talk here as I hold, my favorite thing. But again, review that posture, right? Your spine, it's like a C-scoop here is what we call it. Abs engaged, hips are together. And again, listen to your body. If your back is tired, sit up more and engage those abs a little further. If your hips are pinching, elevate or modify. Let's take it down to now review our leg extension, and we'll take that leg extension one step further with a dead bug as well. So leg extension is basically the next level to a knee drop. Again, option with the leg extension to keep one foot down as well. Breathing with your focus of your posture. As you know, both legs up to the ceiling or down in the straight full version. Keep heart, right? Pelvic tilt, not pushing the back into the mat, tilting the hips and engaging through the core. Breathing as your leg extends and breathing in as you pull it in. So here again, you're exhaling as you're extending. You're checking in with hips and back, and you're breathing in as you work it through. An option here, like I said, is to do one leg at a time and plant the leg as opposed to holding it up there. You can also support the legs gently with a little grip from your hands, but again, hollow the abs, and from time to time, check in with your abs by placing your hands on them with the goal of pulling the abs away from the fingertips as your leg is extending, avoiding that natural tendency you want to pull them, push them to the ceiling with those abs. Let's work into dead bug if you're able to. So again, same concept, only this time opposite hand to opposite leg. So left leg, as your left leg extends, your right hand comes overhead, and then again, you're breathing in to return it back to center. Left hand overhead, right leg extends, and again, you, instead of alternating, you can also do it wherever your foot stays planted and do the same side for your reps. Abs to mat, pelvic tilt. Think about that posture, that alignment, and observe that challenge as you're working through. It's pretty hard not to observe. Always counter your exercises with a little break. This is always a good one, like what we started with, that lumbar stretch, knees to chest. You can take your knees out to the outside of your hips, wish, but also offering enough restoration and enough stretch between your exercises as well. So here we'll just take it into some prone positions as well, starting with some back extensions. So prone means obviously on your tummy, so let's make it there, and we'll start with a back extension as well. Okay, so back extension is just as it sounds. It's good for the lumbar muscles as well as your upper back muscles. So here I'll show you the full version first of all, and then break it down into some other ones that you can do as well. Chin stays down, right? So the first thing, again, we always seem to want to lead with the neck and crank the head. That's the worst thing for you. Keep your chin, so you have about a 4-inch gap between your jawbone and collarbone. And when you're doing these kind of exercises, think like you have a string that's extending through the crown of your head, right? So when you're raising up, you're going to raise your hands and the legs, squeeze your buns, and then inhale. Don't just relax onto your mat, but just let everything lower. When you're doing back strengthening exercises, keep a tight butt. Your glutes insert at the lumbar. That means if your butt is tight and active, your glutes are tight and active, your back will be supported. But again, notice it isn't this, chin down. You just want to lift to where you feel that activation so you can feel that extension. So option here, right? Plant the forehead and drop the chin and just raise the legs. Right? Option as well here, just raise the torso, extending it through. Tight buns, and again, what you want to always counter any kind of extension with is a nice back stretch, assuming a seashell or a child's pose. So again, all about kind of adequate stretching and restoring balance, but you're going to feel the extensors in your back work with those back extensions. Let's work to a plank to follow. So this time here, we'll just review a few ideas with the planks or a few variations. So just become long. Again, how's that butt? It should be tight. Think about when you're entering into a plank, you have two pillars in the body. So your butt is tight, and you want to think your ankle, knee, hip, and shoulder will align with an open chest. So with your plank, you can go just to the knees for a semi-plank. For a lot of people, this is enough work, right? You can feel your lower abs engage and your core start to activate as well. So this is good to start with. Notice the placement of the back. We're not dipping and just lifting, right? It's all about keeping that alignment. Into the next version of your plank, right? You can be, I hope I'm stuck here too long. You can be tapping the toes and holding through. Again, deep, smooth breaths will enable you to do more. You're not trying to lift the buns. You're not dipping and sinking. But here again, you're keeping the glutes tight and you're holding it through. Again, when you're doing a plank, start here if you're most comfortable and work through into a full plank. You're going to start maybe only with about a 5 to 10 second hold as you're moving and you're strengthening. And of course, with that, you'd be countering and pulling all the way back. Kind of building onto that a little bit more. Yogis would know it as a bird dog. Some of us just call it one arm, one leg. But for purposes of today, I'll just show you what it looks like. 4-point position, right? Reset your spine, and you should once again be in that neutral alignment. So the goal of core strengthening exercises is to train the body how to assume alignment. You're going to extend your left leg, right? I'll get into the screen. So that here, again, you're going to notice your left hip will stay pointing down. So the instant reaction when we're doing something like this is to lift the hip up. Training your alignment, strengthening the back and the core. Again, posture is your friend. Otherwise, if you're working in the wrong posture, your body's going to assume the wrong posture. So this is just going to be counterproductive. Extending opposing arm to opposing leg and holding it through. You want to think about long, strong lines. And again, you can work into this. So if your balance is no good, keep your hand planted. If you're able to, you're going to work through, breathe and hold. With the idea you can add more dynamic range, right? So tapping through, but being mindful, again, of where the back is in space in doing so. So again, here you'd always want to counter what you do right, you must do left. So countering it through, again, keeping the hips rounded down. Neutral spine, so you're not dipping, hunching, shrugging, I'm really exaggerating. Everything is nice and straight and aligned. And then allowing the other hand to follow through. You're going to notice with a lot of these exercises, right? A 1-minute hold in your day is better than a 0-minute hold. A few reps here and there goes a long way. So it's not about maybe sitting down to do an hour workout every night for the core, but it's about integrating sometimes. Let's go ahead and just plant it all the way down and just review a side plank as well. Few versions of this. This is more for your side muscles, your obliques. First of all, when you step for your plank, head and neck placement, right? That's all part of your neck. 4 inch gap between jawbone and collarbone. Shoulders will be rolling all the way back. Option to bend your knees, so this will be your first level option. Option to straighten your legs as well. Let's go with the bent knee option first of all. I'll show you the straight leg option as we work the other side. Hips raise. There you go. So we're a more fitted top. What you can notice here, again, open chest. And you're just holding it through. So again, you want to make sure you're not cranking the shoulder. That's going to hurt your neck. Think about that string. Hold it through and breathe. So option again to add some arm raises. Hold through. Just make sure that you're breathing deeply with your side plank. Key part here, head and neck placement as well as your shoulder placement. Elbow directly under the shoulder, keeping your collarbone open. I'll switch to the other side and show you an extended leg version. But again, the version that works best for you may not be the highest level version, but if you're feeling the body work and you're feeling your alignment is maintaining, that's what you want to go for. All right, so that's what would be extended legs, long through, and then lifting and raising all the way up. So here you're stacking the hips, keeping the glutes tight, knees stay extended, and you're just holding through as you're working. We'll do a little bit of a cool down or show you some more stretches you can do for your back. We'll flip on, I'll flip on if you're watching, or we are if you're doing. You're going to go here into your seashell, we call it in Pilates, or better known as a child's. So here your knees will be to your chest, your heels will be to the glutes. Drop the chin down and round through the back for a seashell stretch. The key part here, like I said, you're rounded through the back. You can separate your knees if you wish for a little bit more of a hip stretch. And what you can do here as well is add a lateral stretch by reaching to the corner of your mat. So for this purpose, right side, left hand over to the right corner of your mat. I'm really thinking about here settling into it. And again, here you'll hold it through. So you can feel again, we're restoring that focus. You're stretching the back. We'll do the other side too. And you're thinking about here, when you're working for a lateral stretch, you're feeling more of that lateral movement as we were talking about through the spine. Working into a little bit more extension, again, we'll use the yoga term cobra. Legs are long, hands by your sides, and all you're doing is a gentle lift as you hold it through. Again, make sure you're not jamming the back here. And for some of us, this posture just does not work. If that's the case, avoid it. Holding a stretch. You can also flush it out again with that movement of spinal flexion and extension. Cat-cow, as we call it in yoga, or just plain old flexion and extension, so you feel the flexion of your spine. And then you're flushing it out, dropping and feeling extension as you dip. But again, encourage a full range of motion. Round at the back, separate those shoulder blades, and then dip, pull the chin up, and breathe in to do so. So again, just that nice idea of flushing it through. Yeah, it feels like you're pushing your heart to the sky and you're separating the shoulders. So even here, get that upper back involved, and then you're dipping down, reaching to the tailbone. So again, you can do this from standing, but again, just some more flexion and rotation. So if you're standing, you come all the way up. And just that idea of folding forward for that spinal flexion, and then lengthening through. Another one is the rotation. So this again is just swiveling through the waist and rotating from the spine as well. You can do standing, but just feeling some spinal rotation. So again, what you can notice through the workout, it's all about your body moving in a full range of motion. And when we're working with that exercise, it's all about holding the correct alignment, doing it effectively, and using that core to support you. So that about wraps it up in terms of exercise. You can feel that's a good, I'd say about a 20-minute workout, depending on if you're going to add dynamic range or you're holding, just for the simple few 12 exercises. So again, posture and alignment are essential. You're using the abs and the breath as a means of support, and you're applying correct posture and alignment to train those back muscles how to hold it. Again, with some of the exercises of the warm-up and cool down, it promotes a lot of spinal release when you're working through full ranges of motion. So thank you for joining me today. This video, of course, is available to you at any time, so feel free to kind of review. You can pause in a different spots, but I hope you enjoyed the information and the workout today. So thank you for joining me.